Ladies and gentlemen, please watch this, whether you want to or not. Today we are going to cover some important ground. That's ground coffee. Actually, that's the important ground. The other important ground is a review of letters that you can write to your clients and calculators that you may not have known about. Now, we would like for this to be an amazing, wonderful, and memorable presentation. But unfortunately, it probably will not be memorable, but it will be at least somewhat informative. Now, if you could please turn off your cell phones, put your cat outside for a while, eliminate all distractions, and this show will be starting very soon. Whether you like it or not, and it's not recommended for children or adults. Thank you. Am I done? You're done. Okay, I'm going now. Bye. Okay, that was probably the best part of this presentation. I apologize in advance that I don't have the puppet helping me. I don't have Brandon Ketron helping me. I don't even have Brittany helping me. It's just you and me talking about some of the things that I wanted to talk about. So this is Alan Gassman. This will be a 1-hour presentation. It will probably seem longer, and we're going to talk about estate planning letters and some of the lesser known calculators that we've been developing for EstateView software. This presentation will not qualify for continuing education credit because, as it says here, it is simply not good enough. If you want to watch a good presentation, probably go find one on CPA Academy or Lineberg or one of those places. How do you ask a question, such as the question by Tomer, will the slides be posted soon? Unfortunately, I apologize. I don't know how to post the slides, but we will send the slides to you as soon as this is done, unless anyone wants to call Brittany and ask her how I should post my signs. I know how to post a horse. I know how to make compost. But if you do have another question, click on the upside down pyramid, type in your question, and I will pretend not to see it unless I know the answer. In about a day or two, this webinar will be posted to YouTube where you can watch it again if you are a masochist. We have a lot of different YouTube videos on the YouTube channel. You can just Google YouTube Gassman, Gassman, and every time you watch a video, I make, I think, 1 cent or 2 cents. So please watch them millions of times. Our next official presentation, Tuesday, July 9th, a CPA's Guide to Estate and Estate Tax Planning. Hope you can join us for that, especially if you're a CPA. And then I'm very pleased to announce that Jerry Hesh and I will be presenting in New York City Friday, July 19 for an NYU advanced workshop on spreadsheeting and communicating the benefits of estate planning techniques. Now this course, and I'll mention it here, and there's our pictures. This course is live in New York City, July 18 and 19, and July 18, Will John, the nephew of Eric Clapton, will be playing a 24 Nights tribute in New York City. And if you'd like to join Marcia and I for that concert, just let us know and you can meet Will Johns, Eric Clapton's nephew, and the other members of the band. Also, we will be speaking at the Notre Dame Tax Institute. My partner, Brandon Ketron, who most of you know is taller than I am, will be speaking on how to use financial modeling to help your clients and yourself on Wednesday. And then on Thursday or Friday, I'll be speaking on creative uses of charitable remainder trusts. So hope you can join us for one or more of those. So as you probably know and are sick of hearing, I am involved with Jerry Hesh, Bob Keebler, and Jonathan Blottmacher on a life project for me and that is the creation and refinement of estate view estate planning software. Some of you are paid subscribers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And others of you are on the fence. So I'm going to show you things about this. But if you attended this webinar today and you buy Estate View today, you will get a 10% discount. Use the super secret promo code, good only for today, 10 PERCENT, all caps. That's 10 PERCENT, all caps. And I will also send you a copy of any book you want from my Amazon library. Maybe I should pay you to do that. But anyway, also alternatively, you can get a free trial. Open your browser, go to estateview.link, use the super creative promotional code free trial, and you'll be playing with Estate View along with me. How much does it cost? Well, most people, the vast majority of people are buying the Pro Plus version, which does everything Estate View does, for $4.99. And if you are instead using another calculator, and that other calculator is costing you more than $1.99, which they're probably twice that much, we have a standard version that does everything our law firm has ever used the other calculators for, but in a better way. So I'm going to do a polling question in a little while, but let me get to some actual content now. Thank you for enduring the same shameless self-promotion. So Estate View has a letter writing feature, and let me see if I can show it to you here. Unfortunately, my dual screen is doing something kind of silly at the moment. So how can I move that? Move, move, move. Please move. Refusing to move. That's silly Estate View. Okay, let me just talk to you about the letter writer. So I wrote a letter, and the letter has many forms of provisions that I wanted to put in this letter in order to make it appropriate to send to clients. And let me see if I can get this thing open again. I'm sorry for the problem I'm having. It has nothing to do with the software. It has something to do with my computer here. So anyway, here's the letter. First of all, you will choose whether you are sending to an individual or a married couple. And once you choose that, you can put in their name and their address. And by the way, there's not really a client of ours named Bob and Mary Sample who live at 1234 Main Street. This is just a sample letter. So there is an introduction, and then there is a question for you. And the question for you, and I'm still trying to get the computer to work this thing off. Let me open another one. Open Sesame. There we go. Please go there. Type there. Go to staging, Estate View. Come on up. There it is. Okay, I want to show you a little bit in a different way, and I apologize for that. So I'm going to Letter Writer. You open Estate View, you go to Letter Writer, and this shows you that what you're able to do here is check the boxes. So it gives you a checklist of sorts. Do I want an introduction to the letter? Well, yes, I do, so I'll click that. Do I want to talk about confidentiality and attorney-client privilege? Maybe I do, maybe I don't at this stage, so I click that. Do I want to mention that if the CPA is involved, there may be confidentiality or there may not be confidentiality? I can check that. Do I have multiple clients involved? So I want to talk about conflict of interest. I can check that. Are there entities involved? And I really need to talk about whether I'm representing those entities or whether there's a separate privilege for those entities, I can check that. So that has to do with my attorney-client privilege. I'm explaining to the client that to have the attorney-client privilege, you shouldn't bring your next-door neighbor to a meeting unless they're actively assisting you in getting the representation. You should not share a copy of this letter with your next-door neighbor unless they're actively helping you with the attorney-client privilege. You should not reply all and copy someone who has nothing to do with this or who it may become an opposing party. I want to explain that to them. I want to explain that their CPA's confidentiality will apply in Florida court. There's a CPA client privilege, but not in federal court, except with respect to the IRS, but not in bankruptcy court. But I could hire the CPA to have the CPA actively assist me with my duties, and then it may be privileged under what is known as a Covell letter. And then if I am representing multiple clients, I can explain that there may be a conflict, they may need to get separate counsel, and if there's an entity, I typically do not want to represent the entity if there's going to be any sort of creditor issue, because if the entity files bankruptcy, then under the federal bankruptcy code, it could lose attorney-client privilege. And if I've been representing the entity, then it may be within the grasp of the bankruptcy court judge or the trustee in bankruptcy appointed by the judge to force me to turn over all the information. So that attorney-client privilege is very important. Now, when we talk about representing multiple spouses, one thing that is a nice task for a tax lawyer who wants to do this is to draft marital inheritance agreements. In other words, if you say to your married couple client, thank you for signing your documents, do you realize that if one of you dies, the IRAs are going to be rolled over into the IRA of the surviving spouse? Your joint with right of survivorship assets are going to go to the surviving spouse. Would you like to have an agreement that the surviving spouse has to hold some portion of those assets in a trust arrangement for your common children? Or is it okay for the surviving spouse to remarry and leave everything to the next set of children? Usually one or both spouses have an opinion on that. So we at least want to talk to them about that. And then, is this a second marriage or a situation where one spouse should be represented by me and the other spouse should have separate legal counsel? That can be discussed. So that goes to the conflict of interest type of situations. Another issue with respect to that is who gets billed for the work. So do I tell my billing department, make sure you send the bill only to husband, because husband's my client, wife is not my client. Don't accidentally put both of their names on the bill. Or perhaps vice versa. Now, for purposes of the business purpose, which you have here, this can be very important and it's commonly forgotten. If I'm doing estate tax planning, and it has to do with a family limited partnership where we're taking discounts on value and installment sale, one of those really nifty things where the client is going to have continued involvement with the structure. And the concern is that under the Powell case or the Strange case or the Kimball case or others, the Internal Revenue Service may take the position that what I gave away or what I sold is really still entirely in my estate because I stayed involved. And under Internal Revenue Code Section 2036, if I give away the tree, but I keep the right by myself or in conjunction with others to determine who enjoys the fruit, or if I can enjoy the fruit, that darn tree with its future growth is in my estate for estate tax purposes. On the other hand, if it is a bona fide business arrangement, then 2036A does not apply, even though I might retain some control or some rights. So the question becomes, how do you prove that there's a business purpose, and what is the business purpose? And if you've sat and listened to John Porter, he goes through all this very nicely, but it's easy to forget to put it in a letter. John Porter says make sure you put it in a letter, because that letter, especially, by the way, if you send a copy of it to somebody who's not under the attorney-client privilege, like maybe the stockbroker, then it becomes nice evidence later. So what are these business purposes that can justify these arrangements? Well, one is that we are going to have business involvement of the children. This enables child one and child two to be managers of the LLC, to be trustees of a trust for descendants, and to get involved with the investments and the decision making so that they can learn what to do and also take over as mom and dad and grandma and grandpa get older. Secondly, this is a good way to give authority to a trustee for the same purposes, to have someone now acting in a fiduciary manner for mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, not in an informal manner. Another legitimate business purpose is creditor protection. We're setting this up to help protect these assets that are going into this trust from potential future creditors. And one good business reason for setting up an LLC or a limited partnership is that there may be another type of creditor protection called charging order protection. In many states, if I own part of an LLC or a limited partnership and there's a judgment against me, the creditor can't take over my ownership, can't reach into the entity. They can only get a lien against it called a charging order. Protecting the inheritance of your family from potential future spouses, undue influence is a legitimate business purpose. Saving income taxes by setting up partnerships and structures where income gets taxed to the lower income earners. That's another good business purpose, a reason that part of a family limited partnership or LLC could be owned by what we call a Section 678 trust, where junior is the beneficiary of the trust and the income of the trust is taxed to junior at junior's lower rates. Protection from future spouses. A lot of people want that. This installment sale, this trust, this limited partnership will prevent a future spouse of great grandpa from reaching into that partnership. And then protection from a present spouse in a second marriage, perhaps, or a contentious marriage where we represent one spouse and not the other. A legitimate business purpose is to set things up where it may be difficult for a spouse to reach into or share control of a situation. And then in these letters, we can commonly mention an installment sale. You're going to be estate taxable. We recommend that you consider entering into an installment sale to a grantor trust. And then we talk about voidable transfer risks. Under the Florida law and the law of all 50 states, there's either a fraudulent transfer statute or a voidable transfer statute that says if you transfer assets to a mode where your creditors can't reach those assets, then if you've done so for a primary purpose of avoiding a particular creditor, based upon circumstances and law, it may be set aside. Let clients know about that so that it doesn't come as a surprise later. In addition, think about who you may want to refer that client to. And of course, all of this may come to mind during a meeting, or it's just a good idea to use this type of a checklist system to decide whether you want to recommend a COVAL letter for the CPA or for anyone else, whether you'd like to introduce your client to an investment advisor, whether you'd like to introduce the client to a liability and casualty insurance agent. And if so, we typically show the client a form letter that the client can fill out. Dear liability casualty insurance agent, I recently met with my estate planning lawyer. Do I have an umbrella? Does it cover my business stuff as well as my personal stuff and also that condo in Colorado? Did you know I have a car there that my son-in-law drives? Sometimes he cleans pools for money. Is my van covered? Should I have it in his name? Here's who is driving our cars. By the way, no one should drive your car but you. You shouldn't even drive your car. Take an Uber. Did you know that we put the investment property in an LLC? Does that matter? Does that screw up our coverage? Sorry, we forgot to tell you. Here's our boat. It's more than 20 feet long. We didn't realize that it doesn't fit under an umbrella. Do you have a drop-down umbrella? What's a drop-down umbrella? That's an umbrella that covers certain types of liability that the underlying coverage may not cover. For example, in Florida, if you don't have the proper fence around your pool, then many insurance carriers will not cover that liability. But on the other hand, if you have a drop-down umbrella above and beyond your regular policy, that drop-down umbrella may cover that pool or may cover a pet situation. So it's all nice just to send the client the form letter and say, by the attached letter, we can introduce you to someone we recommend or someone you may find. Please fill this letter out and send it to them. Now, the client doesn't fill the letter out in real life. They just send this to the agent and they talk it through. So then, again, who drives your cars? Then a life insurance agent. Here's an introduction to your life insurance agent who you haven't talked to since 1874, or to a different life insurance agent. If there's a term life policy, when does the convertibility option deadline run? And in addition to that, if there's a permanent policy, is it right? Are you paying enough in premiums? Do you want to move the death benefit up or down? What riders do you have? Et cetera, et cetera. So you can bring this up. You could use a letter like this just to bring up issues and send the client, or at least try to send the client, to someone competent. And then you can talk about a valuation expert. It's fine to say, we're going to send you to a valuation expert. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you that anything you tell that valuation expert and anything you send her will be discoverable by the IRS or the other party if you ever use her report. So we will typically hire the valuation expert under a COVAL letter, similar to the way we would hire a CPA firm. Dear valuation firm, we're hiring you to do a report for this client. We understand that this agreement and everything we exchange will be exposed to the IRS if they ever review your report and ask for it. Hopefully that won't happen, but go ahead and send us the report. Well, they send you the report and it came out wrong. You're not happy with how the report came out. You're not happy with the value that they chose or the methodology for value, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. And you say, okay, well, I hired you under attorney-client privilege. I'm just not going to use you. Here's your fee for the work you've done so far. I'm going to use another valuation firm. So it's not at all unusual or incorrect to hire 2 or 3 valuation firms, get their initial thoughts, see who you're the most in line with, and hire the firm that you choose as opposed to actually issue the report. I recommend doctors to clients regularly. Clients tell me about their health problems, and I say, well, who's the best in the country? Who's the best in your metropolitan area for treating this health problem? Well, I went to a walk-in clinic. They seemed really nice. I met a nurse practitioner. Well, why don't you go to Mayo in Minnesota and really figure the thing out? And why don't you get a concierge doctor? You can afford one. There's a lot of things doctors can do for you that Medicare and health insurance plans don't pay for. So how about a marital counselor? Go see mine. She's so darn good that I'm still married after 41 years. Anyone who's married a long time who doesn't need a marriage counselor, So that nudge to a marriage counselor, the nudge to a coach, you don't have to call them a marriage counselor. I know a great coach. She hires out and helps people understand what to say to a judge and what to say to children in the event of a divorce. I certainly wouldn't call her for marriage counseling. You don't need that, but maybe a little bit of coaching might help you out since you got kicked out of the Dale Carnegie course and are not sure why your marriage is not working out so well. And for some reason you think a next marriage would be better. Okay, so then are you going to refer them to a CPA firm, an investment advisor, liability insurance, life insurance, valuation, concierge doctor? There's all those little letters. It's just nice to have these set up. Now, what about real estate? A lot of us draft deeds. Are you telling the client they may want to get condominium association approval? They may want to get a survey. I mean, normally the standard practice in Florida when you transfer property in a condominium to a revocable trust, you don't do any of that stuff. You just look at the prior deed, you put in the legal description, you put in the right magic language, and you record it. But you might want to tell the clients that there could be issues relating to this. Would they like to be referred to a subspecialist lawyer? This might be a good checklist for you. Same thing for life insurance policies. How are you going to match them to your estate plan? Annuity contracts, how are you going to match them to your estate plan? IRA and pension. I've just given you a lot of language here that we typically use. And then somebody says, why is there a comma after the word dear in the salutation? I don't know. We'll have to fix that. I'll blame it on the computer like everything else. Oh, and by the way, as long as we're representing you, would you like for us to do annual minutes for your company? Would you like for us to do Corporate Transparency Act filing? Would you like us to handle your annual report filing? Would you like for us to be your registered agent or to find you a registered agent? Would you like to have a future meeting? By the way, here's how we're going to bill you. And if you're married in Florida or Delaware or Wyoming, you need to know this about tenancy by the entireties. If you took your child to get their learner's permit, you're responsible for what they do until they're age 18. There's our Corporate Transparency Act language, creditor protection strategies. Come see us again. We recommend we have a meeting in the future. So again, all of that is going underneath or in our letter writer calculator. Kevin's going to be updating it very soon, but what you'll do is you'll go open the calculator, open the Estate View software. And by the way, I'm on the staging site right now. This is the top secret back room that we use for some of the calculators that are not done yet. They're the baby calculators, and we're nurturing them as we get them done. But you click on Letter Writer, which is in one of our primary calculators. You go to the left, you click on the boxes for the paragraphs you want, and then you click on Download Letter. Then the letter is written. There it is. Comes out as a Word document, and then you can edit it. And it just includes the clauses you chose. Again, not a big deal, but it could make a big difference in your practice. So let me do a polling question now. And honestly, the reason for the polling question is just to get some free advice from you. So if you'd like to give us some free advice by attending one of our workshops for free that goes over our Estate View software, and you don't have to answer this, by the way, but I'm going to launch this polling question, and I will click on share. So now if you want to answer this, you can. You don't have to. This is not for continuing education. And you are viewing this. Thank you for your input, and back we go. So the next calculator that I want to show you, and I go back here, go to Estate View, opens up, and this calculator is, sorry, I'm just changing my settings here. All right, so this calculator is the valuation discount calculator, and there's two of them. One is for a holding company, and one is for an active business. So I am going to open up the holding company calculator, and there is no rocket science here, but for young professionals and clients, this may be instructive or at least of interest. So I can put in the name of my entity, Jones Enterprises. Of course, there's pros and cons to whether you put a client's name in an entity or not. They typically like that, but then everyone knows it's their entity. And then what's the gross value of the assets? Let's say $6 million. And let's say there's a margin loan of $900,000. And then they're going to transfer a, let's say, 49% ownership interest. So I click that up to 49%. And is it a voting interest? I can say yes or no. It doesn't have to be voting. And are we going to use a segregated discount? Now, what I mean by a segregated discount is at some point in time, there were a number of tax court decisions that said that there's two kinds of discounts. There's a lack of marketability discount and a lack of control discount. And the lack of control discount, these court cases said, is going to vary based upon what's in the entity. So, for example, to the extent that there's cash in the entity, we're only going to give you a 7% discount. That's what at least one court has said. If this is an all cash entity, then your lack of control discount's only going to be 7%. Now, I think that can be higher if the client signs a business plan that says very soon I'm going into the market, and the client actually goes in the market afterwards. I think you could take a higher discount, but if you're going to go in the market, get in the market. Okay, then how much of the portfolio is in conventional equities? And for that, they would give a 10% discount, or maybe a 12% discount. How much is in bonds? For bonds, depending upon how long the bonds are, short-term versus long-term, there might be a 9% discount. And the portfolio may consist of 5% bonds. How much of real estate is in there? And what is the discount for real estate? So all those things can be important, and it's just so easy to put them into the spreadsheet. Then what's your lack of marketability discount? Courts typically are at 20, 21, 17%. It depends on who you ask and when. And then there's a tax affecting discount. So tax affecting discount, which has been endorsed more recently even for S corporations, will be a discount based upon the fact that a willing buyer is going to have to pay tax on these assets that generate income, plus if I'm buying stock in an S corporation and it owns a hotel with an income tax basis of $1 million and it's worth $3 million, I'm going to have to pay capital gains tax when I sell the hotel. That tax affecting discount might be high. It might be, it turns red when I got too high, got embarrassed. It's warning me. But maybe a 12% tax affecting discount. So the question is, what is 49% of Jones Enterprises LLC worth? And the answer is, I click for results, and then across the top, now let me show you. Across the side left are the inputs I just gave you. And across the top are the outputs. So I can go to these vertical 2 lines, put my cursor on them, move that to the left if I want, and I can click on fit width. Don't you wish you could do this with your clothes? Just, oh, I'm a little lighter now. Click on fit width, and now my clothes fit me. That would sell. Okay, so on the left, I've got Jones Enterprises, $6 million of assets, $900,000 debt, net value $5 million. I'm transferring 49%, which without discounts would be $2,499,000. I'm transferring non-voting stock, but it's only 49%. 29% cash with a 7% discount on the cash part. And then there's the discount amount. 60% securities with a 12% discount. 5% bonds with a 9% discount. 2% real estate with a 10% discount. So my total lack of control discount, 9.88%. My lack of marketability discount, 18%. My tax affecting discount, 12%. Now here's a common error. People say, well, your discount is 9.88 plus 18 plus 12. That's 39.88% discount. No, that's not the way it works. That would be too easy. That's why you need a state view. Da, 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 da. A state view says, no, I will multiply 90.12% times 82% times 88% to get a percentage which comes to 65.03%. So my discount is 34.97%. The value of the 49% interest is $873,000, which I'm going to report as a gift or a sale in my IRS documents. But in reality, I've moved $1,625,000 out of the estate. Now, you may say, what? First of all, Alan, you're showing too much stuff. This is just more information than the client needs. Okay, I click on Alter Summary Columns. And what is it, pray tell, that you think I don't need? Well, they don't need the bond discount value. They don't need the securities discount value. They don't need the cash discount value. They don't need the real estate discount value. That's all baked in to everything. So, and then they don't need the name of the entity. They know the name of the entity. And let's see now. So I hit close, hit fit with, and now it's just a little bit different display. But now the client may say, can we see an alternative to this? Can we change something? Well, of course we can. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked the question. So I click on duplicate. If you're a bridge player, you'll know what this means. I click on duplicate. And then what would you like to change? And the client says, well, what if I put more in securities? I'll move my securities up to 65% or 65%, which moves the other stuff down. What difference is that? So I can move my securities up to 65%, my cash down to 2%, And now I can mark these yellow because this is what I changed. And the difference is minor, but it's there. There's the difference. Now, if I could also, in addition to that, talk to that appraiser and say, you know, we forgot to mention this family hates each other. They haven't spoken in years. What's that 49% worth? Well, let's go ahead and increase. Oops, 25%. See, if you go above 25, the computer warns you, oops, that you may be getting aggressive. 25%. Okay, now by changing that discount from 18% to 25%, we have changed the end result by another $140,000. So that is a meaningful number. Now, you may say, I'd like to share this with my client. I'd like my client to run these numbers. Does my client have to pay $195 to use the software? No, they don't. You click on Share with Client. It gives you code number 364538. I could change that all I want. Click on Generate UL, click on Copy to Clipboard. Now all I have to do is do an email to the client. Here is a calculator you can use. I could do a little Zoom or Loom, L-O-O-M video that shows the client what I just did, how it works, and then I can send them this link, send them this password, and they have 2 weeks to use the calculator. In addition, I could have a PowerPoint presentation prepared for all 3 of these, along with an explanation of how all this works. Click on Submit after I put the client's name down, and then there's my memo on valuation discounts in general, not specific to the client, but it tells you where I got my numbers and examples of some court cases and where the court cases seem to be going. And in addition, there is my PowerPoint of a holding company valuation, client's name, today's date, which illustration it is, what the information was that was entered in here, and what the discounts are, how they work, and what the situation is. You can, of course, customize that PowerPoint. So let me move my PowerPoint back up here before I forget to do that. So that is the calculator. By the way, I can also go to File, Save As, and then put in the client's name, Jones times 3, whatever I want to put in, click Save. Now it's saved to my computer, and I can also save it, of course, to the client directory in my, what we call the J drive in our client item, so I can pull it up later. So go back to home. Once there was a way to get back home, now I want to show you the valuation discount calculator. So the valuation discount calculator, I've got the name of the entity, and then I've got the ability to enter the annual earnings before income taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Now, I could add something, and I think I should, to rename that, because it could be annual taxable income, it could be annual earnings before taxes, but without depreciation, whatever you select. But it's simple here. It's not a complicated calculator. It just allows you to say, what's the annual income amount that is my reference point, and what's the multiple? So as you know, certain businesses sell for 7 times earnings on average, 6 times earnings on average. I know you could do a weighted average, but we're keeping it simple. We're just showing the client, here's how it might work. Your business earns $500,000 a year without you working there, or if you hired someone to replace you, it would earn $500,000 a year on average. 6 times multiple is common in your industry. Besides the assets in the company that are needed to run it, the working capital, you've got an extra $500,000 in there that you could pull out or that the buyer could pay extra for. Your entity owes debt of, let's say, $500,000. Then you are transferring 40%. You're going to sell 40%, or perhaps even 99%, or a higher percentage. I could just type in 99. My favorite agent from Get Smart, non-voting. And then what's my lack of control discount? What's my lack of marketability discount? What's my tax affecting discount? And is there a dependence discount? Like grandpa runs it and he's the only one that knows how to make it work. And if he's not there anymore, I'll take a different dependence discount. And then I will click to see the results. And you go column by column, and the value is $1,692,000. Now, this does not make me or you a valuation expert by any means whatsoever. But what it does do is it gives you the ability to, oops, I just clicked the wrong thing there. It gives you the ability to at least show a client or to do the shorthand calculation for yourself on how this can work. So that is the valuation discount calculator. The next calculator that I'm going to show you is the amortization calculator, just so you know it's there. So it's easy to find a calculator on the internet that allows you to put in the number of payments, the principal amount, and the interest rate, and then it tells you the payment amount. So, for example, I'm going to loan $1 million. I'm going to get 5% interest. I want to get paid monthly for 144 months. That happens to be 12 years. Payment amount $92.49. So that's pretty easy. Click to see results, and it does give you an amortization table. So you've got your amortization table there, and in addition to your amortization table, I've got the ability to export it to Excel. So now I've got an Excel spreadsheet right there, which I can use any way I want. On the Excel spreadsheet, I can round it to calendar years, see what the calendar year interest charge is, et cetera, et cetera. I can also create an explanation of amortization tables, which a lot of people don't understand, and a PowerPoint presentation of the amortization. So, I mean, for many of you, it's silly that you would do that, but you know what? A lot of young professionals, including first-year tax lawyers who graduate with an LLM degree, don't know how amortization works. So they can read this, or at least your client can read it and learn how an amortization works. In addition, though, what we really like about it, and by the way, for all of these amortization tables, if you want to show just every other year, you just click there. If you want to show every third year, you click there. Every fourth year, every fifth year. So you could change the amortization table in that way, and you can move the columns around, change which column is where if you want to do that. But let's go ahead and do a second amortization now. So and I'm going to pull this down so you can see across the top. I'm going to click duplicate. And the client says, well, that's all good and well, but, and thanks for telling me the payment amount. But what I want to know is how much do I have to loan my daughter and her spouse if they can only pay $10,249 a year, and I want them to pay it over 160 months, and I want to charge them 5% interest. How much do I need to loan them? Well, the other programs won't do that, but my program just did. You're going to loan them $1,195,115. So you're able to solve for the principal amount, and then you're able to show the difference between those two loans. And then the client may say, well, show me a third one. What interest rate would I adjust this to if they can only pay me $93.49 a month? Well, the interest rate would have to come down to 3.48%. That's below the applicable federal rate. In fact, I can click here on look up applicable federal rate, and it shows me that my applicable federal rate for July for a long-term loan is 4.56%. So I can go back here and I can say, what can I do for 4.56% and solve for number of payments. So now it tells me, well, you can do this. You're just going to have to do it over 160 payments. So anything you want to do, you can show. And then what if I want to know what these look like as far as here's 3 loans showing my daughter, here's the principal amount owed, and here's where the balance comes down. You see, wouldn't you rather go ahead and pay it faster than pay it slower? And then there's an amortization chart, and there's the interest versus principal for one of the loans. So it's a good educational tool, and it was honestly pretty fun to put together. A lot of you have not seen the Monte Carlo calculator that we have. This is a very, very fundamental, oversimplified Monte Carlo calculator. We're going to be adding to it in the not too distant future, but it is, as with the other calculators, at least an educational tool. And in addition to that, it is very helpful to show clients that the longer they have their money invested, the more stable the situation is. So what you have here are some numbers I was running before. I'm going to hit File, New, so I can start over. And now it starts with $1 million portfolio, 40% bonds, 60% equities, invested for 30 years. And I want to see the worst 1% scenario, the best 1% scenario, and then other normal standard deviation scenarios. So I click to see results, and this is based on historical conventional Monte Carlo numbers. Our numbers pretty much match what the other Monte Carlo calculators you see do, but I like the way we do this. Across the top, here's the value, there's the ratio of bonds to stocks, number of years invested, and when we rolled the dice here 10,000 times based upon based upon 1936 to present, randomized rolling of the dice. Because, you know, if you get 3 really good years, the first 3 years, you're going to have a better return than if you get 3 really bad years the first 3 years. So when they rolled the dice 10,000 times, the average rate of return was 8.84% that you see there. And the worst 1%, so 1% of 10,000, so the worst 1,000 got a rate of return of 4.72% or less. That would be disappointing for 30 years. But the very best 1% got a rate of return of 13.04%. And we're going to have to fix that. That should say 1% instead of 0%. Now the top 25%, 25% or more of the dice rolls got a 9.99% return or higher. 10% of the time they got 11% or higher, but 10% of the time they got 6.54% or lower. So I can't tell my clients, hey, we'll just show you an 8% rate of return. That's what it usually is, because there's a 10% chance it's going to be under 6.5%. Well, you may say, what's the difference? Those numbers don't seem all that different. Well, going back here, when I look at the PowerPoint, there's a really big difference. After 30 years, the lowest 1% is only worth 3.7 million. The best 1% is worth 39 million. Half what the average is 12.5. So I can't tell my clients it's to only look at 12.5. They're going to need to look at all of these alternatives, and that's only on 1 million. What if the client has 5 million? I click up here to 5, and it just rolled the dice 10,000 more times. Every time, this is really cool. If I click to increase the equities from 60 to 65%, watch that 50th percentile rate of return. It goes from 62 million, and now I'm going to click it. It takes a little while because it just had to do all those rolls. Now it went to 67 million. It went up by 2 million. It's actually safer to get more in equities than bonds when you run these numbers, which as far as the rate of return. So there's 65%. And now I'll show you 60%. So you see the difference is a different rate of return, a different standard variation. But now let's do another one and just show what happens if there's only, say, 10 years or 11 years. So now with 11 years, the worst case scenario is worse. The 10th percentile scenario also worse. So you'll have more variation when you have a shorter period of time. What we're going to add to this is going to be the ability to be withdrawing or adding different amounts to the portfolio each year during the period of time. And then this shows you for the first scenario, the 30-year scenario. Look at this. This shows you in graph form the difference between high versus low. And you can say at 15 years, it's not that big of a variation. In 30 years, it can be a pretty big number. And the second one and then the third one you can see. And in addition to that, if you just click up and down the number of years, you see how those charts change to get a feel for that. And this is the timeline percentages backwards. So any questions, comments, or suggestions that you may have on the Monte Carlo simulator will be appreciated. The other one that a lot of people are not aware of, and I've got 2 minutes here, so I'll go over just a little, is the Nest Retirement Calculator. And this is based upon the spreadsheet that Marcia and I built over 20 years ago with a financial advisor. And my question was, are we saving enough, and what can we do? And the financial advisor put together a spreadsheet that I thought was very impressive. And the inputs for this spreadsheet were very numerous. And every item in our life had a column on the spreadsheet. So for example, if we were going to pay for an expensive wedding, that would impact when we could retire. Or if we were going to save a little more or save a little less or get a vacation home, or when we were going to get a vacation home, that was going to really impact things. So what I've built here, and we've had great input from especially 2 financial advisors named Chris Rowe and Kevin Miller. I thank you both sincerely, and they've been using this for their clients, is I've got a married couple. It could be single, but I have a married couple I'm showing here, ages 40 and 38. Let's say that they'll live to 91. One of them will get to 91. By the way, their table life expectancy is 88 years for the first one, 86 years, age 86 for the second one, 48.5 years. So they want to retire, say at age 61, on the equivalent of 175,000 of income, and then at age 77 they'll slow down. They'll only need 100,000 of income. That, of course, is going to be inflation adjusted. Their home is worth 750,000 with a 3.75% mortgage. They presently have $1.5 million invested. Here's their anticipated rate of return during the accumulation years when they'll have more equities, and then once they retire, a little bit lower rate of return, they'll have more bonds. Here's the annual saving. Here's what they're saving each year, and it just goes on and on. Here's an expected inheritance. You can have an unlimited amount of reoccurring additions, including Social Security. You can go ahead and put in their debt amount and the amount of their debt and the amortization table for their debt, one-time expenses such as college and a wedding, and then reoccurring expenses such as a church fund or something like that. You can just add whatever you want to have more of these things. So when I click to see the results, I've got my inputs on the left, and I've got my spreadsheet, and I can show every single column, so a different column for every item, so that this client can understand that everything they do, most importantly being what they spend a year, impacts their end result. And then I'll hit fit with, and it fit with there. And so what is this showing me? Well, they're on track to have more than what they wanted to save by the retirement age 61, and more savings. They could actually retire at age 60. So they're in good shape. But if the primary wage earner dies in any of these years, you see here in yellow how much life insurance they will need. And then if you want to know how much that may cost, and by the way, we're not in the life insurance business, but I took some data. So I click on Life Insurance Estimator, and now for a 38-year-old, if I need 7 million or 8 million of term life insurance on a 20-year term basis, if she's in preferred health, or she's in preferred health, that's going to be about $4,300 a year. So I can add that to my expenses and make sure that they are covered for that. But now let's go to duplicate because they're bridge players, and they do what a lot of people want to do. They want to have a $2 million home or a $2.5 million home, and that's not going to grow as fast as their investments. And in order to have a $2.5 million home and to handle stuff, they're going to have to increase their debt from $500,000 to $2 million. So click there to 2M return. Oops, that was weird. 2M return, 2 million. So now I can look at that and say they're still on track. They're still on track. So, but anyway, that is the nest, and then you can print out an explanation. You can print out a PowerPoint and put in the client's name and take a look at what the PowerPoint comes out with and what you'd like to change it to. So those are my letters and my lesser known calculators. I do want to do one more polling question for those of you who are still here. If you are still here, let me choose one. And that is, and I'll just launch this. When you do your estate planning, are you using common sense? Are you running numbers? Are you relying on other advisors? Are you not doing any of those? Or would you rather have a spinal tap? And the response here, which I appreciate, is 9% of you are using common sense, 52% are running the numbers and discussing this with clients, 12% are relying on other advisors, and 22% it's not applicable, and none of you want a spinal tap. And then I'll do one more polling question here, and that is, click there, share. So if you would like to have a free workshop participation, a lot of you have already done them, just let me know. We have 20-minute, 40-minute, 60 minutes, or we can give you a spinal tap. So, okay, got some people signing up there. Let me see if I can find out if there are any questions that I want to answer. Okay. How much is Estate View? Estate View, as I said, our standard version, which does the calculators and the comparison of the various scenarios within each calculator. It basically does what we've ever wanted to do with any of the competing software programs. It's $199 a year. The one that does everything, including the PowerPoints and the married couple and single comprehensive plans, is $499 a year. And if you buy it today and you were on this webinar, you get a 10% discount. You can go to, how do I buy it? You go to estateview.link, estateview, estateview.link, LINK, just like Lancelot Link, Super Chimp, and go ahead and buy it. Put in, let's see where that was. Sorry that I forgot. What's the secret code? The discount. And by the way, you can always email me for this information. The 10% code is 10PERCENT. Any other questions here? And I do apologize, I'm a little bit awkward looking for my questions box. Next question is, what is the $2,500 model? Well, the $2,500 model gets you 4 hours of tax lawyer time and 30 hours of video editing. So what we do and what a lot of clients do or what some advisors are doing, is you shoot a video of the plan, and then the artists or the video room makes that into a transcript with the pictures. And if you'd like to see a sample of that, just email me and I'll be more than glad to send it. So thank you very much for attending this session. Thank you very much for any questions, comments, or suggestions you may have on estate view or planning in general or presentations or anything else. My email address is agassman, A-G-A-S-S-M-A-N, @GASSMANPA.com. I thank you.
I thank you also. And I think you've spoken enough already. And you're a terrible ventriloquist. I can see your mouth moves.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Could you please get the rest of my work done?
I will. I will. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have a great, fantastic rest of your day.